So during the last virtual retreat of the year that I hold in our learning community, someone brought up what I think is actually a pretty profound question. It has to do with relationship to structure in business. Lots of people have trauma reactions or rebel heart or whatever you want to call it, but there's a resistance to structure, that there's a desire for freedom and a lack of structure for some personalities, for some people. And it's really up, especially because at the end of the year, a lot of people try to focus in on strategic planning processes for the next year. And anyway, it can create all kinds of issues. This is Mark Silver with Heart of Business. And I want to talk about structure for yourself in a compassionate, open-hearted, flexible way that I think may be really useful for you in the coming year. The first thing that I said for people that found that they were really resistant to structure and that, a lot of times people say, yeah, I'll show up if there's somebody else, show up for a client or I'll show up for a friend. But when it's for me and something I know I need to do in the business, everything else gets in the way. I'm just no good at structure. I wanted to remind them and remind you and remind all of us from a compassionate place that there's actually a lot of structure that you're already naturally good at. Our homes have a structure, bathrooms in one place, kitchens in another, thank goodness. And, there might be imperfections and desires to have the house be a little different, but for the most part, your home has a structure that you do really well. Our bodies have a structure, skeleton and skin and organs. The days have a structure. There's darkness at night and light during the day. And I don't mention this to be facetious or absurd or ridiculous, but I find that when we're finding our way into difficult topics in business, it can be really helpful to identify where we're actually already doing that pretty well. That there's already an opening. There's already, a way in. And so just taking a moment and really honoring that maybe you do structure not too badly in certain realms. The other thing that I mentioned, and it came out of the comment that, show up for clients, which I hear over and over again from people who are resistant to self-imposed structure, is that there is a kind of relational structure which is completely valid. It's completely valid to want and need people around us in order to face difficult tasks. That is not absurd. That is not a failure. There's nothing broken. When I knew I started to need to exercise when the kids were really young, I knew that if I just joined a gym, I wouldn't go. So I joined a gym that had classes, and I signed up for a particular class at a particular hour, and I got to know the other people in the class. And so I went really consistently because of the relational structure. It's one of the reasons in our learning community why we do co-working times. And so if you have a need or you have a track record with showing up for relational structures, I want to encourage you to embrace that, to not judge yourself, that you don't need to be any different than you are, than you've been created to be, and that you have the avenue and the affirmation to say, okay, here's something I need to do for my business regularly. What is a relational structure? Is there a friend? Is there a colleague that, maybe for a big project can actually show up and be with me during that time? If it's an ongoing regular thing where that would be a little bit too hard, can you do bookending with someone? If you've never heard of bookending, it's where you say, hey, between 3 and 4:30, I'm going to be working on this project in my business that I've been having trouble getting to. Can I call you at the beginning Sometimes just leave a voicemail, sometimes check in for like a minute or two, and then hang up, and then call them at the end of the appointment and check out. And sometimes when it's appropriate, if you all are doing something similar at the same time, just leave the phone open and the call open and chat back and forth with each other. However it works. I just want to say that structure is kind of an inevitable part of life, not just business. And that it's okay to need it. And that doing those two things, honoring where you're already good at structure and leaning into relational structures, can make your business life this next year so much easier than trying to do something that you're not built to do. All right. I hope that's helpful. I'd love to hear your experiences, pushback, questions, and just wishing the best to you and your business.